Welcome everyone to another edition of Moya Talks. This month of January we are celebrating Moya because we turn 4 years January 1st, and we want to showcase the people of Moya. For this edition we invited Ligia Saldaña Martorell. Ligia has been in Moya for quite a long time, almost since the beginning, but she recently became a partner, and we congratulate her for that, and we thank you for that, Ligia. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you. You're welcome, and everything together.
Ligia graduated from Cornell University. She has over 20 years of experience in the US, both inland and in Puerto Rico. Ligia is also a mentor and educator, and she is shaping the careers of future architects. So, again, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Let's do it.
Let's do it. How did you decide to become an architect? And what is the part of the profession that you like the most?
How did I decide to become an architect? This question has been posted previously to me, and I guess I am from a family of engineers, actually. My dad is an engineer, my grandfather was an engineer, my great-grandfather was an engineer. So I come from a long line of engineers, but I was always artistically inclined. And throughout my high school years, I would keep asking my dad, I want to study something related to design, maybe, but not engineering. So we keep on, he kept on quizzing me every day. And at some point he said, look, why don't you consider architecture? And my next question was, architecture. So how long does that take? And this is before the internet, so I didn't have any notion as to how many years it would take. And so I figured also there's a 5-year Bachelor of Architecture path that I could follow. 5 years is enough. I can do 5 years. And so then that's how I sort of came to the point of deciding architecture maybe in the works. And then came the idea of, where do I study architecture? And I know that was not part of the question, but in Puerto Rico, there was only one architecture school back in the year. I'm not going to say the year, but some years ago. And my dad had gone to Cornell. My grandfather had gone to Cornell. So, my dad got kicked out of Cornell, just so you know. So that wasn't a great reference, but yeah, he had been to Cornell. But my grandfather had graduated in 1927, so I applied to Cornell as I did to other colleges, and I ended up deciding on Cornell. And what part of my profession I like the most? I mean, to me, more than a profession, it's almost a vocation. And it just becomes so in your way of life, like to the point that, your critical thinking skills that you develop as an architect are just applicable to everything in life. And they give you the ability to adapt to so many different scenarios, not only in your professional scenarios, but like personal scenarios. And that sort of gets introduced to your offsprings. In my case, I have 3 sons. And ever since they were little, they would go to a place and they would be like, so look at the fire sprinkler, Mom. And look, I mean, it's like so little things like that make me smile. And yeah, I guess the critical thinking part of architecture just keeps on giving. Like it's a skill that you will apply everywhere. So I think that's how I would describe it.
Cool. Now, I had a friend who went to Cornell, right?
Okay.
He was doing a postdoctoral stance there. And he calls me one day and he tells me, I know why people from Cornell get Nobel Prizes. There's nothing else to do but study.
That is true.
So how was the transition from Puerto Rico to Ithaca?
Okay, yes, so that's a tricky one. Ithaca, for those of you who may not know, is in upstate New York. So we are about 3 hours and a half, 4 hours from the city of New York. And it is out in the countryside, to say the least. I mean, there are like farms and silos, but there are wine tasting trails too, I can tell you that. But, and it's very cold, a lot of snow. So my transition to Ithaca, I just opened my arms to the adventure, really. and I cannot complain. Things that happened while at Cornell was that instead of taking a normal physical education class like you would do, maybe do tennis or bowling or something, you could do downhill skiing. So I ended up learning how to downhill ski. So that I didn't mind. And it was 5 years. I remember a friend of mine who was also studying architecture would tell me, Ithaca, there's nothing to do like you say. You have to concentrate on your studies. And every time you get a break, maybe fall break, spring break, any break, just go away from Ithaca. You have to leave Ithaca. So that's what I did. So I ended up actually going a lot of times to Washington, D.C. to visit my other friends that were in college there. I ended up going to Boston. I actually ended up going to Canada for some breaks. So I just went all over the place and left Ithaca whenever I could. So that's how I managed Ithaca. But I cannot complain. Honest to God, I did the downhill skiing. I learned ski. Yes, David learned to ski at Cornell as well. Yep. And it was a nighttime skiing process. It was really bad. I mean, if you didn't learn nighttime skiing, okay, I mean, you could see the ice patches while you were going down the ski slope. It was really bad. But I learned, and I fell as well. So many Greek Peak, yes, David, there. Yes, Greek Peak. That's it. Actually, funny, my son is at Syracuse right now, which is an hour north of Ithaca. So yeah, he's not complaining about the weather. He's leaving on Saturday to go back. Maybe on Sunday when I talk to him, he may be crying, but we'll see.
Excellent. Besides your architectural practice, you have done some research in sensory perception and space.
Yes.
How did that research inform your practice?
Well, I did some research during a summer that I spent at UCLA. I got awarded this scholarship to do this research. And it was sort of a small research that I did, honestly. But in the big scheme of things, applying research to architecture is very important. I mean, particularly because it helps our clients be informed about the latest and greatest things, maybe technology or materials, resiliency, and all those stuff. So I'm all for it. I mean, all design process has to include a little bit of research, for sure.
And how do you balance that with the particularities of commercial architecture? How do you convince clients to implement research?
Yes, I think it has to be analyzed again in the life cycle of the building, because as you say, maybe going for a pavement surface that is innovative in a way that it absorbs water and so on and so forth. If we can prove to the client that maybe spending a little bit more money now, but it can have economical benefits down the line, that would be my idea as to how to manage implementing those new products or systems into our design.
Are clients now more demanding of these technologies?
I think they're willing to listen to when we have information we can share with them. And I mean, we do have a lot of clients that are looking for LEED certificates and stuff like that. So that's also a good time to bring the products up and the systems to their attention. But yeah, I have a feeling they are more keen to the idea of balancing the product selection and making changes as to what the usual product selection has been throughout the years, and embracing.
Now, besides all that, you have also been, you're a teacher at the University of Puerto Rico, the Pontifical Catholic University.
Yes, I am. Mm-hmm.
Since 2009, right?
Yes, that is correct.
So how do teaching and professional practice feed each other? What lessons do you get from one that you can apply to the other?
Yeah, teaching has been one of the bonuses, I say, in my professional life. I wasn't expecting to be a professor at all. And this opportunity came knocking my door back in 2009 when a group of people decided to put together a new school of architecture near where I live. and they were looking for professors. So I decided to give it a shot, and it was so exciting to see, you know, the new students come in the door and starting to nurture them in this design thinking and the critical thinking that I was mentioned earlier, and see how they bloom along the 5 years. It's also a Bachelor of Architecture. So I think I've been learning from my students the same amount of information they've been probably learning from me along the years. And it keeps me current, and it gives me energies, I think, to carry on with my daily professional responsibilities otherwise. So I like it. I like it. And everywhere I go, I can see, you know, somebody would call out to me, like I may be eating at a local restaurant. They'd be like, "Professor, so how are you doing?" I'm like, yes. And then I see them with their kids and stuff, and I'm like, okay, so maybe I'm getting old, but yeah, I do like it. And
How has the practice of architecture changed in Puerto Rico since you started studying?
Oh, for sure, one word: technology. I mean, I began my practice right about the time when AutoCAD was coming up, and a lot of offices were starting to experiment with implementing, you know, AutoCAD. But that has just exponentially, you know, rocketed, and all this 3D modeling and the Revit and the BIM. I mean, that is the main change. I do have to point out, and this is something I tell my students all the time, I mean, Revit and all this 3D modeling is just a tool. You do need to have your design thought out prior to actually engaging on the tool. I mean, it's just a resource. You cannot let Revit control your design. So but for sure, it is something that is here to be used and to use efficiently, but always in benefit of the design, not controlling the design at all. It has to be used also.
Is that the only change, technology?
I think so. Clients have become more knowledgeable, and there are a lot more clients out there, you know, giving it a shot and you know, contracting professionals to do the work. And I think because communications have also exponentially, you know, out there with the internet and all that, you know. When I went to school, the internet was starting, so it's just amazing the amount of information out there. So that too has helped, I think, and changed. And this is the reason why I'm here, actually, because of all these communications. So
yes, it is. What makes this possible?
Yes.
So in 2012, you took some of your students to Haiti.
I did. Yes.
To work in disaster relief, and you built a clinic, right, with them?
Well, we actually went, yes, this is what happened. At the Pontifical Catholic University, the School of Architecture has some like community reach out programs. And this person came up to us and they needed guidance as to how to decide on buying a parcel of land in Haiti. This is in the aftermath of the earthquake. And they asked me to have my students come up with schematic designs for this future clinic. But the client insisted that I went to Haiti to go with him to check out the site and all these things. And I was not very, you know, welcoming of that thought because it had only been like a year and a half since the earthquake. But ultimately I said, sure, I'll go. And it was really, really amazing also. I mean, seeing the culture and seeing how, you know, the aftermath, the country, all the suffering and all that gives you most definitely a different perspective on the benefit that architecture could, you know, help this community. So it was very, very interesting.
A related question, right? As disasters become more frequent, stronger, how architects can help to provide relief by designing more resilient and more durable spaces?
That is a hot topic globally speaking. I mean, not only disasters, the water raising the levels, you know, along the coast and all that. That is in the forefront of the architectural education world right now. Like students are primed on all that sustainability and resiliency, like you call. And for sure, architects need to address that need to recognize the limitations along coastlines and accommodate for the future. I mean, there's no sense on designing something that within 20, 30 years is going to be, flooded or things of that sort. So yes, the students are growing within the architecture school system, understanding this concept, and I'm hoping that they can apply it to the practice as well moving forward. In Puerto Rico specifically, given that we have the hurricanes and earthquakes as well now as of recent, but primarily the hurricanes, all our construction has to sustain winds of up to 175 miles per hour. So we do have to take that into consideration. That's one thing.
You have been part of Moya almost since the firm's inception. You have acquaintances here. But last month you became a partner. What motivated you to take that step?
Okay, one thing before I answer that question. I haven't been here since almost the beginning. I actually have been here since prior to the beginning because I began working with Paola when she was in her other office. So I actually, okay. So that's one little correction there for you. But yes, I've been here officially since January 2018, extra officially since August 2017. And I recently became a partner and I accepted the challenge that Paola offered a couple of months ago. The opportunity came and she knows that I have always been a little hesitant only because I also have my practice in Puerto Rico and I also have other responsibilities, but then who can say no to Paola? So now, I'm here and I'm excited and yeah, let's bring the future and embrace it. So.
What projects are you most excited about? Current
project? Well, all my efforts are currently focused on Old Randall. And so I have to say that it is something that is very quickly becoming especially my heart because it's a very complicated project. But so I'm really looking forward to seeing how it comes together in July in a very short period of time. I'm very hesitant, but I am very faithful that it will happen. I'm also worked with MLK and with Renee, who's there looking worried, like always. Hi, Renee. So MLK, I was very excited to see pictures of how it came up and, seeing the reality of the drawings physically coming together. It's amazing. So I think those two, but I've worked on others, but those two are in the head at the top of my list right now. So excellent. I would say.
Ligia, I'm going to open the floor because I know the people want to ask you questions.
Okay. So let's see. Questions for me? Anyone?
You can unmute yourself and ask it directly if you want. You can put it in the chat.
Ligia, I know you mentioned the ski slopes but you should also talk about the waterfalls.
Oh, right? True. Yes. Waterfalls in the Finger Lake regions are amazing. Yes.
And that big, huge pedestrian bridge as well.
The which bridge? Who said David? Which bridge?
Waterfall? The cross between one side of the campus, the other side of the campus.
Uh-huh.
And you get sprayed by some of that mist during, I think, spring when snow starts melting.
That's true. Yes. I think you're talking about Baby Lake.
Right.
That area.
Okay.
So, the other thing that you also forgot to mention was, if you ever talk to Ligia a lot, she's always as happy as she looks right now, right? and it's because you have a house right next to the ocean, right?
I do.
Ocean. Yes. So, you should. So every time we talk, I can see stuff in the background.
I have it all blurred out now, but yes, you're right. I do live very close to the ocean. I don't see the ocean from my window, but yeah, I'm like a 5-minute drive from the ocean. So yes, so that helps. Vitamin D, yes, I get a lot of vitamin D when I go out. Yes.
And you're also a pretty decent golfer.
I manage myself. Yes. I was taught. I mean, my dad taught me how to play golf when I was 10. So I should probably be a much better golfer, but I'm not. But I can hit the ball for sure. Yes.
Is Vinay good? Because he sees.
No, Vinay. Yeah, from third. I mean, I've talked to others that know Vinay, and they say that Vinay is pretty good, actually. Yes.
I have a question, Ligia. What do you think of all those St. Patty's parades in Cornell when they would set the dragon on fire? Remember those made by the architecture student? They parade them all.
Yeah, Green Dragon. Yes. Dragon Day. Dragon Day. Yes. There's a tradition at Cornell, and as David points out, freshmen are to construct. They build out a huge dragon, and they parade it around campus, and the engineers try to knock the dragon down. And then you end up at the main quad, and then you burn the dragon down. And then you have a big mud fight, and I have to say that there are a lot of beer kegs inside the dragon. Professors are drinking, students are drinking. It's a big party. Yes, David, thank you for pointing that out. Yes. I have forgotten a little bit about those times. Yes. So, that's an amazing tradition. And then the upperclassmen at the architecture school, they all dress up and they defend the dragon. That's what they do.
Ah, I see. That's right.
That's very cool.
I like it. This is Al Gooden, and welcome.
Al.
And I'm finally glad to get to meet you. And that whole story about how engineers try to knock down the architect's dragon. I mean, that's true in life. I think it carries on into our profession, right?
Yes, there's a little bit of that also. Yes, you're right.
No. I did have actually kind of a follow-up question on your talk about the climate and climate change, and one of the things I think is that I'd like to see the AIA and architecture as a whole is we do have a really big influence on it, and the simplest thing is just like you do with foods and everything else is stop specifying endangered species of wood. You know, if the world's climate is in the Amazon, basically the world is all our drugs come from the Amazon. The ecosystem there is that, and so we as an industry should say we no longer are going to specify this.
Yes, I agree.
Kill the industry, it's basically, and then save the earth. And that's a simple thing we can do. And I was just curious on your thoughts on other things that architects could do to kind of influence the construction business.
For sure. I mean, we control for sure the way or the materials that go into our buildings and our maybe exterior materials or interior materials. And as you say, if we create a good conscience as to which one should we decide on one over the other, and we just make a decision the whole profession does, that would be ideal. But we could start with us. I mean, just as every office starts, helping. And but it requires the research that I mentioned at the beginning as well. So right. Sometimes projects are so quick to go out that seems to get behind, on the somehow lags. But we can make it a point, and I think it would be a great contribution, just even within our office, to start to gain some traction there.
Start small.
Yes.
And then again, my little mantra has always been, good design is good business. So you've got to kind of teach your clients that this is not only a feel-good decision, but this is a good business decision.
Exactly.
And that's how you really kind of get their ears to perk up. If it's going to affect their bottom line, then they go,
money is, that's why I said the life cycle of the building or of the project needs to be analyzed. And if that makes sense, then they can make the commitment, I think.
Right. And in this world of that we're living in right now, what the constant complaint you hear is getting people to come work for them. And, these kind of decisions also work really well in recruiting. If you can say we are that's what the whole people who were pushing to get LEED Gold and all for their offices and all, they used it as a recruiting tool more than they did really consciously believing and doing the right thing. It was about recruiting. So
yes, I agree.
think
But
great.
we need to, we need to do the green. Be aware that there is a greenwashing idea where things just get put on a paper, and at the end it doesn't make any sense. Even the systems don't come together, how they should. So it needs to be a little bit more thorough, I think. But you're right.
Are you seeing your students being that driven? Great, that's good.
Yes, I am actually. Yes, I am.
Good for you.
There.
Good for you,
yes.
And good for them that they have you.
Well, yeah, no, and I'm hoping that they can put it in practice for sure moving forward.
So there's hope for the earth, basically.
There is hope for the earth. Yes, I think. We'll see.
Well, Ligia, we're running out of time, but I had a last question to close off the conversation. Where do you see Moya in the near future?
Global. I think that Omaira mentioned it last week, and I mean, we have all the tools to address projects anywhere, basically. I mean, and I know Vinay may not like what I'm saying because we're talking about how to cover new projects that are coming in the pipeline and stuff, but I think globally, I mean, that's one thing that attracted me to the office initially, is that Paola was thinking ahead from day one, and we are ahead in the race, I think. Like, we've made it part of our office culture, and I think that will give us an advantage. But yeah, we are already global anyways. I mean, see how many people here from so many places. So I think global.
It's been a pleasure having you.
Sorry, Rodrigo, I just have one comment. I worked with Ligia at the beginning of my work with Moya, with Dash. And I have to say that I learned so much from her, and it's been a pleasure working with you. And aside from the fact that I consider you a friend, but I think it's great working with you. I think you're good for everybody in Moya.
No, thank you for those words, Jessica. No, I think it's my educational background that sort of permeates to my professional background, and I like teaching a little bit even while I work. So that helps. The mentoring part of it is important too.
That is a perfect note to finish. That note by Jessica is just perfect.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you very much, Ligia.
Thank you, Ligia.
Attention, the answers.
Thank you. You know where to find me. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone, for another Moya Talk. See you next week.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.